Ever spent hours, and I'm talking total caffeine-fueled all-nighters, grinding for an exam or some huge project, only to totally blank out when it actually mattered? Or maybe you worked yourself into the ground, gave it 110%, and the result was just, no, middle of the road at best. Kind of makes you want to throw your laptop out the window, right? Look, I'm going to tell you something that might sting a little, but honestly, it's the secret nobody is telling you. The problem isn't that you're not trying hard enough. It's actually the exact opposite. You're killing yourself trying, and that is exactly what's tanking your performance. Stick with me for a minute, because what we're talking about today is going to flip everything you've been told about the hustle and the grind and discipline completely upside down. And I promise you, this will change how you chase your goals forever. Let me tell you about this guy, Raphael. He was one of those straight A students, you know the type. The guy everyone low-key hated because he just seemed ready, natural, a total machine. But then he hit med school and something weird happened. The harder he studied, the worse he did. So he did what we're all taught to do. He doubled down. He cut out sleep, ghosted his friends, basically moved into the library. He was dedicated, right? He was grinding. And yet his grades kept dropping. By the time he walked into my office in his second year, the guy was a ghost, just totally fried. As he was laying out his routine, it hit me. Raphael was following the effort manual we've been handed since we were kids. Only problem? That manual is total garbage. See, we live in this culture that treats extreme effort like a literal religion. You've seen the TikToks, right? Hustle while they sleep. Rise and grind. Basically, if you aren't exhausted and miserable, you aren't doing enough. I bet you've even liked a few of those quotes. But here's the truth. That mindset is creating a generation of people who are completely burned out and, ironically, totally unproductive. And there's actual science to back that up. Think of your brain like a muscle. But here's the catch. Just like you can't grow a massive bicep by lifting weights for 24 hours straight, your brain needs strategic breaks to actually, lock in information. There's this thing called cognitive load. When you push too hard, your brain literally starts to glitch. It's like trying to pour a whole gallon of water into a tiny coffee mug. The extra water doesn't stay in the mug. It just spills everywhere and makes a mess. That's exactly what happens with your focus. But wait, it gets worse. Have you heard of the law of diminishing returns? It's an econ concept, but it fits humans perfectly. Basically, after a certain point, every extra hour you put in gives you less and less back. Hours 1 and 2, you're absorbing maybe 80% of the material. Hour 3, maybe 20%. Hour 4, man, at that point you're just staring at paper and questioning your life choices. And here's the kicker. You don't just stop learning. You start unlearning. Your brain gets so overwhelmed it starts mixing up facts, creating fake associations, and weakening memories that were actually solid before. You're literally making yourself stupider by trying too hard. Think back to when you were first learning to drive. At first, even 30 minutes behind the wheel left you wiped, right? Because you were using pure willpower for everything. Mirrors, blinkers, pedals. Is that a pedestrian or a mailbox? But now, you can drive for hours and barely think about it. Why? Because those actions moved from your prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that burns through energy like a gas-guzzling SUV, to your basal ganglia, where your automatic habits live. Here's the big aha moment. Too much effort actually blocks this handoff. When you're constantly forcing it, you're preventing your skills from ever becoming natural. Now, you might be thinking, wait, are you telling me to work less, to just be lazy? No. That's the trap. It's not about doing less. It's about doing it differently. It's about being strategic instead of just being brutal. There is a massive difference between intensity and volume. Back to Raphael. When I told him this, he fought me on it. He was like, Doc, if I slow down, I'm going to get left behind. My classmates are pulling 10-hour days. I have to compete with that. And I told him something I want you to remember. You aren't competing with their effort. You're competing with their results. And results don't come from how much you suffered. They come from how good your process is. So we did an experiment. I told him to cut his study time in half. But there were rules. 1, 90-minute sessions, max. 2, mandatory 20-minute breaks. And no, scrolling TikTok doesn't count as a break. Go for a walk, grab a snack, stretch. 3, total focus, phone off, door closed, zero multitasking. He was skeptical, to say the least. But 3 weeks later, he comes back, and man, he looked like a different person. His eyes weren't bloodshot. His posture was better. He'd just pulled his best grade of the semester. But the most important thing he said was, "Doc, for the first time, I was actually there while I was studying." Before, he was staring at a book for 5 hours while his mind was in a million different places. Now, in 90 minutes, he was getting more done than he used to do in an entire afternoon. There was this fascinating study in Sweden with world-class musicians. They wanted to see what separated the elites from the just okay players. Guess what? It wasn't that the elites practiced more hours. In fact, they often practiced fewer hours. The difference was twofold. 1, they practiced with insane intensity during their sessions. And 2, they slept more. They averaged an extra hour of sleep a night and took strategic naps. They understood that rest isn't the enemy of performance. It's the engine. Ever notice how your best ideas come to you in the shower or while you're walking the dog? That's because you switched to what's called diffuse mode thinking. That's when your brain finally has the space to connect the dots. If you never stop grinding, you never give your brain a chance to actually process what you're learning. It's like cooking on high heat all the time. The outside gets burnt, and the inside stays raw. Let me ask you a straight-up question. How many times have you kept working on something even though you were getting absolutely nothing done, just because you felt guilty about stopping? We've been brainwashed to think rest is for the weak, but neurobiology says that's a lie. Your brain literally strengthens its connections while you sleep. Effort without rest is like lifting weights without eating protein. You can work out all day, but your muscles won't grow. So how do you actually do this? How do you find that sweet spot? First, understand the different types of rest. It's not just sleep. There's physical rest, sure, but also mental rest, like meditation, or just letting your mind wander. And sensory rest, which means getting away from screens and noise. Second, try the 80% rule. Your best work doesn't come at 110%. It comes at 80%. You can sustain 80%. You can do 110% for a week, maybe 2, but then you'll crash and spend a month operating at 30% while you try to recover. Do the math. Consistency beats intensity every single time. I'm not talking about being mediocre. I'm talking about being a high performer who actually lasts. Look at Einstein. He took naps and spent hours just staring into space. Hemingway, he'd stop writing in the middle of a sentence once his morning session was done because he knew if he pushed too hard, he'd ruin the flow for the next day. So here's a little challenge for you this week. Before you start a big task, ask yourself, am I in the right headspace for this? If the answer is no, go change your state first. Take a 10-minute walk, close your eyes, then start. You'll feel like you're losing time, but I promise you'll do in 2 hours what used to take you 5. If you're ready to stop the fake hustle and actually start winning, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. We're going deep into the science of how to actually get ahead without losing your mind. And hey, leave a comment. Where in your life are you trying too hard but getting nowhere? Let's talk about it. Because at the end of the day, you don't need to work more. You just need to work better.